between Thailand?
No, we focus mainly on the economic crisis and the swine flu. Only to mention that there are, of course, a number of work that's pending in terms of agreements. One of which is the extradition, the other is how we might enhance the economic partnership or the free trade area, which is what Hong Kong is requesting.
Okay. And in terms of that extradition, are we at a stage of a timetable or something like that at this point?
No specific time was mentioned. The chief executive just said that when we work on these issues, it would be good to have a deadline, but we didn't set one.
Okay, but you are confident of progress?
Yes, I think there will be continued progress. But as I said, the bigger picture and the bigger challenges for us both would be the economic issue and the flu.
In terms of economics, obviously Hong Kong investors have expressed quite a lot of concern about the situation. Are you confident that true reconciliation, as you called it today, is possible?
I think it's possible. I don't say it's easy. And I think if we have a good process, even if we don't quite achieve everything, we would at least have begun a process that shows how things should and could be done. And if there are remaining problems, then at least we know how we should approach them. I think the main objective is really to make sure that we no longer resort to violence on any side, and that all issues can be discussed, and Parliament and politicians are ready to meet the challenges.
In terms of violence, there was some talk at one point of, some commentators mentioned the phrase civil war. Was that a very real fear in your mind at some point? And is it your kind of worst case scenario ahead?
We have certainly, last year we saw some clashes, obviously, between two sets of protesters. And I have been very concerned that no such clashes reoccur. There were minor clashes between the blue shirts and the red shirts in Pattaya, but we moved in very quickly to make sure that it didn't get out of hand. And the losses that happened during the operations were clashes between local people and the protesters. Again, we tried to move in, but in those cases we were not able to get there in time to prevent the losses.
And moving forward, do you think that will be the low point, or are you...
I think that the events in April clearly demonstrate that the majority of Thai people don't want to see any of that. And by responding to the grievances through the parliamentary process, I think the government is signaling clearly that this is how we will deal with it. And I think since then, even the protesters have been very careful to make sure that their protests are peaceful and will not repeat the events of April. But of course there are one or two comments from some of the leaders of the protests who say that they might resort to other tactics. But I don't think that that's going to gain acceptance even among the protesters themselves.
Okay. And if Thaksin said tomorrow that he wanted to call you, would you accept a phone call from him, and what would be your message?
I'd like to do things in a transparent manner, and what I say to him privately would be the same as what I would say to him publicly, which is that he can find justice in Thailand, that he has to be treated like every other Thai, and that's that. And there's really not much more to talk about.
The act to revoke his passport, will that make it harder for Thailand to extradite him?
I don't think so.
No?
I don't think so.
Okay.
And we are only acting according to regulations.
And frankly speaking, did his appearance, even via video link here, which was then beamed into Thailand a few months ago, did that cause you did you feel a sense of sort of political trouble over that? Was that something you'd prefer Hong Kong not to do again, to allow to happen? Or?
Well, I didn't watch the link and specifically on that occasion, but certainly when he was addressing the protesters directly, there were a number of occasions where clearly his comments could be interpreted as condoning the violence or even inciting violence. And I'm sure nobody could be happy if they were in charge of preserving law and order. And we would certainly ask all our friends and partners not to give a platform to anybody who wants to instigate violence anyway.
And that was a message you gave to the Chief Executive today?
Wasn't necessary, I think. They all know.
How can you be sure they know? Has it been raised before? Or?
Well, I think in the discussions leading up to the extradition treaty, I think surely the context would have been discussed.